Hello everyone, welcome back to the Movie Reviewers 100. My name is Scott, also known as Cineram here on YouTube. I do the Thursday videos for this collaboration channel. Okay, let me see now. Fear and Desire, Killer's Kiss, The Killing, Paths of Glory, Spartacus, Lolita, Dr. Strangelove, 2001, A Clockwork Orange, Barry Lyndon, The Shining, Full Metal Jacket, Eyes Wide Shut, 13. Yes, I think I got that right. Stanley Kubrick only made 13 films between the 50s and the late 90s. You know, that's not a high batting average. But some people say that what matters is, of course, the quality and the care that went into the pictures themselves. Kubrick's wife, Christiane, who was the singer, who appeared at the very end in the last scene of Paths of Glory, said that he always wished he could have made more films. This process, the process of putting a film together was something that he took a lot of care in. You know, very, very curious individual, and interested in a lot of different subjects, and used the process of filmmaking to learn more about the world and about different eras and different kinds of people and what have you. So for this theme week, I initially thought, well, you know, I love Full Metal Jacket. You know, that could be like my favorite Kubrick movie aside from A Clockwork Orange. But I thought it might be more interesting just to talk about a couple of pictures that show more about Stanley Kubrick specifically. And so I decided to take a second look at a couple of documentaries that he is the subject of. Ray, when he did his review of The Shining earlier this week, talked a little bit about some of the things that were happening during the making of that movie, and I am pretty sure he got that information from the extra on the DVD called simply Making The Shining, which is a film shot and edited by Stanley Kubrick's youngest daughter, Vivian, who was a teenager, I think, in 1978 and 1979 when the movie was being shot. Might have been a little older than that. I'm not really sure what her age is exactly. She doesn't appear, she appears briefly, just basically in the mirror, as she's filming Jack Nicholson. But she's just basically got a 16mm camera on her shoulder with a sound mic hooked up, and she's wandering around the set, taking in the action, watching her father coach the actors a bit on certain scenes, and coaching the young actor who plays Danny, Jack Nicholson, and Shelly Duvall's son. There's also some interview footage, but I don't think it was conducted by her. It was conducted for a different purpose, and then she used the footage along with some footage of finished scenes from the film. But it's really quite exciting because Kubrick, for the latter part of his career, didn't really talk to the press at all. He wanted his work to speak for himself, for itself. And so he didn't really give interviews, and he didn't appear publicly all that much. But what we have here in this film is, in this extra, is footage of him making the movie, actually the nuts and bolts, a day-to-day process of making the movie, and the difficulties in getting snow machines to work, and coordinating lots and lots of extras for the ballroom scene and things like that, using the Steadicam. And there's footage of him, typing up new script pages. There's footage of him choosing camera angles and shooting, the take of Jack Nicholson locked in the freezer, pounding on the door at Shelly Duvall, going, "Go check it out! Go check it out!" So it's really exciting, to see a moment like that from a film, which is very iconic film and highly regarded, and you have that footage there of him actually working on making that process. He's standing off to the one side, looking at Jack Nicholson's sort of eye level. And he goes, "Oh, that's okay. Let's try it from underneath instead." And so you have that shot looking straight up Nicholson's nose, which is in the movie. So you have footage of him actually trying that camera angle and going, "Yeah, I like the way that looks," and that's great. That's exciting. Shelly Duvall, of course, talks a lot about how difficult it could be working with him sometimes. That she learned quite a lot, but it was a very, very trying time for her. And I think that the interviews with the young boy who plays Danny, and with Jack Nicholson and with Shelly Duvall were actually conducted after the shoot was over. because she's sort of looking back on it. But yeah, it was not an easy time. Nicholson really seems to be enjoying himself quite a lot. He's always mugging for the camera. But of course, the documentary only covers a short amount of time in the shooting of the film, only a handful of scenes, not like the whole production. Just like, Vivian was probably off of school for like, a week or so or something like that, and so she was around. She didn't have homework to do or anything like that, so she picked up the camera and was, following around the cast and following her dad around and just shooting a whole bunch of stuff. It's great. It's really, it's priceless actually. Priceless look behind the scenes at someone who didn't really, wasn't interested in having a crew, a whole behind-the-scenes crew come on to his film and shoot a whole bunch of stuff. There are plenty of still photographs of him making his various pictures. But yeah, not anything quite in depth with making The Shining. Vivian also shot some footage for during the shoot of Full Metal Jacket, but that doesn't appear in The Shining DVD, obviously. I'm not really familiar with all the extras on the Full Metal Jacket DVD. But that footage does appear in another documentary called Stanley Kubrick, A Life in Pictures, which came out in 2001, and this was about 2 years after Stanley Kubrick died in the spring of '99. And this documentary is about 2.5 hours long, covers his entire life, from early childhood. He was born in 1928 all the way up until the completion of his first, finalizing the version of Eyes Wide Shut, showing it to the studio heads and to Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman, who starred in the picture in New York. And this was at the end of February, and 1 week later he died in his home. So one of the things that they brought up in this documentary, this long documentary, is that there were a whole bunch of rumors about him because he wasn't talking to the press and because he wasn't seen in public very much. Whenever he had a shoot, he always made sure that the location or the studio, whatever it was within a very short amount of driving distance from his own home. And he had sort of his life built around, working and his family and friend time, never having to leave this small area of England, which was ideal for him. But because of this, there were a lot of rumors about just how obsessive and what a tyrannical person he was, demanding hundreds of takes, and absolute perfection. And he planned actually on doing interviews with the release of Eyes Wide Shut to sort of, come out and just sort of clear the air about this stuff. But of course he didn't get the chance. He would have had to do that interview like within the week of finishing the movie, and of course he didn't do that. But there are lots and lots of people in the film that testify to the fact that he's a very warm guy, very friendly, loves his family, loves his friends, spends lots of time talking with people all over the world on the telephone, very, very curious guy, very, very smart. There's footage of him actually, home movie footage of him when he was a kid, basically goofing around, dancing and playing piano with his sister. And there's actually a really great moment where they have a shot of a portrait of him in his grade school class, his elementary school class. This is this big group shot of all of them outside. And the camera moves in basically on Stanley, who's off to the far right, and it closes in on his face. And there's this look on him in his eyes that's almost exactly the same as the look he has on pretty much any of his pictures when he's adult, which is very, very smart and just kind of knowing something that no one else does. He always seems to have this look on his face that he is aware of something and pleased about the fact that he's aware of something that maybe other people aren't. But yeah, it goes through, the whole film goes through every one of his pictures, starting with the very first one. And before that, actually, he did a documentary about a boxer called Day of the Fight. It was his first film. And then he started making money by making sort of educational or instructional films for companies. And then he gathered the money to do Fear and Desire, his first film, which is a war film. And then Killer's Kiss, and then The Killing got him some acclaim. And Paths of Glory got him even more acclaim, and then Kirk Douglas, who was a star of Paths of Glory, asked him to come on board as the director of Spartacus, which was a big Hollywood movie. So once he'd done those films, he was established himself as someone that could be depended on to run a whole production like that. And after that, he started with Lolita, and then started making the more personal inclined movies that he was most interested in, I think. And he lived in England for about 40 years. So that would have been like late 50s or early 60s through the end of his life. So that covers pretty much most of his career, from at least Dr. Strangelove on, if not Lolita as well. I'm not really sure where Lolita was shot. There's a whole bunch of great people that appear in the film Stanley Kubrick: A Life in Pictures. Malcom McDowell from A Clockwork Orange, a couple of guys from Spartacus, Sidney Pollack, Tom Cruise, Nicole Kidman from Eyes Wide Shut, Shelly Duvall, Jack Nicholson from The Shining. They were all pretty much contemporary interviews. It wasn't a lot of older footage. There was at least one guy who had passed away before 1999. So there was an older footage of him, but also heads of studios and effects guys and music composers. Here's an interesting thing that I didn't know about until I saw this movie, and that is that there's a lot of classical music in 2001, but there is this one piece that I thought for sure was an original composition for the film itself, and that is at certain points in the movie you hear this whole chorus of people wailing away, and that's actually another pre-recorded composition that Kubrick decided to use for those sequences. I'm like, I thought for sure that he would have done something like that himself and done it, but no, that's actually someone else's composition before 2001 was made. So yeah, a lot of great stuff, including also not only people who worked with Kubrick, but also Steven Spielberg, of course, who met with him a few times, and Woody Allen also makes an appearance talking about just reacting to how different his films were and how he didn't like 2001 when he first saw it, but he liked it again the second time, and he liked it even more the third time. And Paul Mazursky, who I think worked with Kubrick on an early project, probably The Killing. I can't remember exactly which one he worked on. Anyway, fascinating stuff. Really, really fascinating. And there's also a really good biography by a guy named Lo Bruto. I can't remember his first name right now. Lo Bruto, which I bought years ago. Doesn't have a lot on Eyes Wide Shut because it was published before that movie came out. But yeah, that also covers his whole life. So yeah, that was, there's a great deal to learn about him after the fact, unfortunately. It's very, very disappointing to me to know that I will never get to meet that guy and have a conversation with him, because from what I understand, having a conversation with Stanley Kubrick would be, just totally awesome. And you could learn so much from a guy like that. So yeah, in fact, it was in this very room, and I'm sitting in almost the exact same place I was in March '99 when my former roommate walked in and said, "Guess who just died?" And I guessed Robert Altman, but that wasn't correct. He didn't die until 2006. So after that, everyone's like, "Oh, Stanley Kubrick, greatest director ever, blah, blah, blah," and enough with the, megalomaniacal, what do they call him, recluse? No, hardly a recluse. Very, very warm, friendly guy, very smart, and just immensely talented and intelligent. And we're all going to miss him very much, because there's not going to be any more films by him, like Tom Cruise said. Oh, by the way, Tom Cruise also narrated the movie. And it's funny, actually, when he talks about the fact that Kubrick, in the narration, when he talks about how Kubrick never bothered to correct any of the rumors about himself, you can actually hear Tom Cruise kind of sigh with some exasperation while he in the middle of a sentence. I didn't notice that until this last time. I actually watched the film like earlier this year again, but I had to watch it again for this week. So thanks everyone for watching this, and for watching the other guys' videos. Al did 2001, and as I said, Ray did The Shining, and EJ did Killer's Kiss, and James did The Killing. And I also there's a clip basically of the documentary that his daughter made, Making The Shining. It's on YouTube actually, so I have a link below. And also I'd done a review of 2001 myself for this channel, but it got deleted when our channel was hacked. Luckily I was able to retain a copy and put it on my own personal channel. So if you want to see that one as well, that's in the link below as well. So thank you very much for watching. Got a new theme starting, tomorrow. Right, exactly, tomorrow. So please tune in for that, and subscribe if you haven't already. Leave us comments. Appreciate it very much. Thanks.